Around the World in 22 Slides. I have recently read the classic novel Around the World in 80 Days, and I have gained a huge appeal for it. The novel is very diverse from everything from the styles to the location. Because of this diversity, I have chosen to compare the two most diverse characters in the book, Mr. Phileas Fogg and Passepartout. Mr. Fogg had been named the main character of this classic novel, and also the most interesting. He accepted and started the perilous journey east around the world. Within a few minutes, the subject of the journey came up without a worried feeling in his heart. He did that at half his fortune, £20,000, and only bringing with him his new servant Passepartout, a pair of shoes and socks, and a carpet bag, and the other half of his fortune to pay for transportation and food. He was a sailor, a master at poker, a perfect gentleman, braving this dangerous journey with a man different in many ways, but a scholar in the characteristics that matter in the face of death. Passepartout was accepted as Mr. Fogg's servant a few hours before his master began packing for the journey around the world. He was an out-of-place Frenchman in the heart of England, struggling to fit into this new country much different than his own. But, luckily for him, he didn't have much time to get used to it, having to travel across the globe within a day of his departure from France. He was a nervous, awkward, small man with a big heart, besides the most obvious reasons of being different than his master, who was to be quite the same in many other ways later in the novel. Being master and servant, Mr. Fogg would probably pick the most similar person to himself he could find for the job, but in this case, he decides to go with the opposite. He picks a man resembling few of his own characteristics, and, being an Englishman, thinks a Frenchman to accompany him as his servant. But Passepartout proves to be quite brave and noble like his master in times of dire need. One example being when Mr. Fogg and Passepartout were on a train, leading to a certain victory against the midwestern area of America ahead of schedule. All seemed perfect until a wild band of Indians hijacked the train and started attacking the passengers on board, including Mr. Fogg and Passepartout. Armed with 2 revolvers, Passepartout assaults through the smoke and bullets, killing Indians as he runs to the head of the train, trying to save the train driver and only engineer on board. Unfortunately, Passepartout is captured and dragged to the Indian village. Mr. Fogg repays Passepartout's act of valor by bringing 20 armed men from a nearby camp to get him back, in which he succeeds and continued on this journey scar-free. In all, these two characters are completely different from each other, but somehow, this is the beautiful thing about this novel. The fact that fate can weave a perfect scarf of writing from using completely different fabrics is the real beauty in this novel. Somehow, fate finds a way to withstand the test of time in this certain novel. Have the same feeling of warmth 100 years ago to this day. That is the real beauty in this novel. The fact that opposites attract and connect is beauty in itself.